Yeah, welcome all to our webinar today. It's a Level Up with Mail and Deploy. And in this webinar, we highlight some of the key considerations and benefits of Mail and Deploy. My name is Angelica. I'm responsible for communications and marketing at Mail and Deploy. And I'm hosting you today with Hannah, as you might have seen. Yeah. We show you why our reporting suite for Qlik is a good choice for your business and what we are doing differently than other tools currently available on the market in this webinar today. Yeah, as you may know, at the moment you're all muted. If you have questions, please feel free to use the chat or the Q&A window. We will collect your questions and answers we will collect your questions, not your answers, but we will answer the questions at the end of this session. Yeah, now to our speakers. Our speakers today are Bernd, our CTO, and Emma, our consulting fairy. Bernd knows all the in and outs of our product and is, so to say, the technical brain of Mail and Deploy. And Emma gives exciting demos and provides our customers with whatever they need to succeed. Yeah, now enough said from my side. Bernd, it's your turn.
Thanks a lot. Also, hello from my side. I will go right into the subject. So just a quick overview what Mail and Deploy is before I will talk about some of the highlights and then switch to a live demo where I will show you selected features that we've decided to showcase today. So what is Mail and Deploy? Mail and Deploy is a reporting tool for QlikView and QlikSense. And it basically provides solutions for 3 use cases, which I will quickly cover. So the first use case that Mail and Deploy was designed for is standard reporting. And by standard reporting, what we mean is you have designed reports that dedicated key users design. And so, for instance, a PDF report, an Excel report, those reports fetch data or visualizations from QlikView documents, from QlikSense apps. And then those reports will be distributed in a centralized way. And by centralized, we mean somebody sets up a distribution task, let's say every Monday, 9 a.m., selects a number of recipients or dynamically evaluates those recipients. And those PDF files, Excel files, whatever, will be distributed by email, uploaded to FTP, to an Amazon AWS S3 bucket, or whatever distribution method fits the use case. The second part of Mail and Deploy is what we call self-service reporting. And that enables users to subscribe to QlikSense sheets or to individual objects of that of a QlikSense sheet, even if there is no report, or even if no report has previously been designed by a key user. So that's purely self-service. And the second part of self-service is that Mail and Deploy offers a web user interface that allows users to, even if they don't have a Qlik license, to log on to that hub and request previously designed reports on demand. So they will not only be able to get that report like every Monday, 9 a.m., but they can actually say, okay, I need that report now. Then they can supply various parameters and request the report. And the third part is alerting. And that use case covers situations where you want to be notified by email if certain KPIs or certain conditions within your QlikSense app or QlikView app are fulfilled. For instance, you could create an alert that says, hey, Mail and Deploy, send me an email when when the created revenue of a sales representative is 10% lower than the one in the previous month, for instance. And then I can get a list of all sales representatives for which that condition applies, and then start analyzing why that is the case in the QlikSense app, or I could then request a mail and deploy report for that particular sales representative to see what's actually going on. Now, since mail and deploy has lots of features, and there's no way that we can cover them all in a live demo today. Here's a slide that gives you or shows the highlights of mail and deploy, and selected highlights I will show in a minute in a live demo. So connectivity wise, mail and deploy supports QlikSense on-premise. So if you have an on-premise installation of QlikSense server, you can use mail and deploy to connect to those apps and create reports. We also support QlikSense SaaS environments. That includes the QlikSense Enterprise SaaS, as well as the QlikSense Business environment. We support the connection to QlikView documents, either through a direct file system access to get to the QVW file, or through a QlikView server. And we also support direct connections to Microsoft SQL Server and Oracle databases. And the SQL Server databases I will show in a live demo a bit later. The report formats that we support are CSV and XML files, PDF, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and HTML. One thing that we particularly focused on was the visualization support. And by visualization support, we mean that you can include objects that you have in your QlikSense app in a native manner. What I mean by that is, if you have a Qlik pivot table or a P&L table in QlikSense, or a Vislit finance report, for instance, mail and deploy does not only support to include that in your report as an image, but as an actual native Excel, Word, PowerPoint, whatever table. And I will showcase that in a minute in the live demo. The distribution or the supported distribution methods of mail and deploy are, obviously, you can save reports to the file system, you can send them by email, you can upload them to an FTP or SFTP server, you can upload them to an Amazon AWS S3 bucket, to a Microsoft SharePoint instance, or into a Microsoft Teams channel, and even much more. What we also focused on was what we call automated reporting. That means our distribution tasks are very, very flexible. So you can have cycles, you can have conditions, you can have dynamic report distribution, which basically means you have the email addresses to which you want to send reports in your Qlik data model, and mail and deploy will automatically fetch that information. You can even control your complete reporting process using a QlikSense app that contains distribution data. So who should get which report, filtered to which data, and when should they get that report. You can trigger distribution tasks through the API, and you can integrate mail and deploy through that API in an intranet portal or any other third-party app. Another focus that we have is monitoring. So we provide an extensive tool set to monitor your distribution tasks and your reporting through our execution calendar feature. You can set mail and deploy up to receive notification emails when certain tasks fail or something goes wrong. we do have extensive log files, so you get all the information about your past executed tasks in a very detailed manner. You can even monitor mail and deploy using a Qlik Sense app that reads those log files from mail and deploy, and you can export logs to text files, CSV files, or HTML files to send them to our support team or easily share them with us. Now, what are we going to show as a live demo today? So the first part I will do for the next probably 20 minutes, where I will show the visualization support that I was just talking about. So I will create a report that has a pivot table, a P&L pivot. So this is the P&L from the visualization bundle of Qlik, and I will add a VisLib finance report to a demo report that we'll create. And then I'm going to show you the SQL Server integration and how you can use data from SQL Server to feed a Microsoft Office chart. So one of those native Excel, Word, or PowerPoint pie charts, bar charts, whatever. And in part 2, Emma will show you how to connect to a Qlik Sense SaaS environment and how to build a basic report based on a Qlik Sense SaaS app. Okay, let me end the presentation and switch to the demo mode. So what I have prepared is in the mail and deploy user interface, I have already added 2 Qlik Sense apps. One is a demo app that I've created, and one is a demo app provided by VisLib that contains the finance report. The SQL Server database I will skip for now because that will be a part later. And when I switch to the demo app, you can see what I have here is a pivot table that has some fake sales data and a P&L data with some custom styling applied, background colors, as you can see, and even text colors. Now, if I want to integrate that in a report in Mail and Deploy, what I have to do is I have to go to Reports, create a report. I will show you that using a Microsoft Word report, but of course, everything that I show now also works in PowerPoint, Excel, and HTML as well. I'm just going to call my report demo report, and I'm going to launch the report designer. And the first thing I need to do, since this is a Word report, I have to add a new template, because Word reports are always based on templates in Mail and Deploy. And I'm just going to adjust this template so that we have space for those this wide P&L table. So I'm going to change the orientation and the page margins. And basically, I'm now ready to insert data or charts from Qlik Sense or Qlik View into this report. Now, we have a feature that is called Data Source Browser in Mail and Deploy that basically lists you all of the Qlik Sense and Qlik View apps and SQL Server and Oracle databases that you have connected to. And that allows you to actually browse which fields are inside a particular data source, which sheets are in that data source, and which objects are on that sheet. So in our case, I want to export the P&L pivot. So I simply right-click, new table element, and it allows me to set up a bunch of options depending on the type of visualization that I want to export. In this case, since it is a P&L table, and a P&L table allows row heights to be set within Qlik Sense, I can, for instance, select to keep the original row heights that we have already set or that we have also set in the Qlik app. So if I quickly switch back to my Qlik app, you can see that the row heights are slightly adjusted and they are higher than the standard row heights for that P&L. So now that I have set this up, I can drag and drop this report element to my report and create a preview. And what you will see is that the output that we get is a native Microsoft Word table. So you can see it's just a standard Word table that would support page breaks and everything like that. And it has all the styles, number formats, row heights, as I just said, pretty much exactly like you have them in the Qlik Sense app. So without having to change anything, really, I do have a good representation of that table in my report. Now, the second object that I want to insert in my report is a pivot table. So I go back to my data source browser. I select the example pivot table that I showed you previously in the Qlik Sense app, right-click, new table element, and I drag and drop it into my template. And since this is a pivot table object, I do have additional options here. For instance, I can switch on the indent rows view, which will give the same visual representation of that pivot table as we have in Qlik Sense, where all the left dimensions are within one column, but just indented. And I will also check the option fit to available width, so that it would take advantage of the full page width that we have in our report. And I'm just going to create another preview. And as you will see, the same thing that applied for the P&L table also applies for our pivot table. So without having to change too many options, we immediately get a nicely looking pivot table where we have our text colors exactly as we have them in the Qlik Sense app. We have borders, number formats, and everything. If I have enough time, I can show you later how to even adjust that visual representation of such a pivot table. And yeah, last but not least, I want to show you our VisLib support. So if I go back to my Qlik Sense, I do have a the demo app, the VisLib demo app that contains some finance reports here. And let's say I want to export this balance sheet simple version with hidden top header in my report. Then again, I go to my data source browser. Instead of the demo app, I'm now going to switch to the VisLib Finance Report app, objects, balance sheet examples, and I have my simple version with hidden top header here. So I'm going to create a new table element from that. And one option that I can also show you here is the expand all left dimensions option. So by default, if I switch back to my Qlik Sense app, this is a very large table. So when I expand all the individual dimensions, this is going to be a lot of data. And sometimes I do not want to include all the data in my report. And I'm happy with all dimensions collapsed, like we see it now. And you can also do that in Mail and Deploy. So by default, it expands all left dimensions, but I can uncheck this option and simply supply the number of dimensions to expand. Well, in our case, since we only want the top level dimensions to be visible, I simply leave a 0 here, and then I drag and drop my object into my template as with any other table. I create a preview. And now below our pivot table, we can see that we do have this, again, it's a native Word table. It supports page breaks. In Excel, it would support additional calculations to be made with that table. So it's not an image, it's an actual table representation of the VisLib object that I just shown you in the Qlik app. Now, I think I do have enough time to show you how you can customize any of those tables, and I will show you how you can do that with the pivot table that we have here. But as I said, it applies to any of those objects. So you could style and change the output also for a VisLib Finance report. So if I go to my example pivot table, there is an option here that's called cell settings. And if I click this, I can see that by default, mail and deploy sets it up to keep original. And keep original means mail and deploy tries to keep number formats, colors, borders, and everything, font sizes, as close as possible to the actual original QlikSense visualization. Now, I can also change that to custom. And when I change it to custom, I can, for each style property, such as font name, font size, text color, bold, italic, underline, backgrounds, borders, paddings of individual cells. For each of those style properties, I can individually define how that should be set by mail and deploy. Now, I will make an example now that doesn't really make any sense in the real world, probably, but it showcases what you can do. So I will keep all the properties to keep original, but all we want to change is the font name. And we can select, for instance, a constant font. So that will simply replace the default font used in QlikSense by your corporate identity font you want to use in your reports. But there's even the option to make this dynamically based on an expression. So I could write an expression like, if the row number equals 1, use Courier New as the font, and otherwise use Calibri. Not that this is particularly beautiful, but it serves the purpose of showcasing this feature. And if I create a preview, what we will now see is that the pivot table will look exactly as it did before, with the exception that we now have a Courier New in our first table row and Calibri in all of the other table rows. Yeah, so you can see this is now Courier New and this is now Calibri. And that feature allows you to do things like coloring certain values or making cells, giving cells a certain background color, for instance, based on the value. So if the value is greater than 50,000, then color it green and otherwise red, and lots of other stuff, change borders and adjust that to your corporate identity. Yeah, before I move on to the SQL Server demonstration, there's not only the option to set custom settings for each table, but you can also define global styles, which will then be applied or which can then be used in all of your report tables. So you don't have to set up your corporate identity style for every table individually. You can actually create global styles and reuse them in your in many tables and many reports. Now I'm quickly going to switch back to the mail and deploy user interface, and under data sources, I have already added a Microsoft SQL Server database connection. And I've done that by simply providing the name of the SQL Server instance, to provide username and password to connect. And I just specified the name of the database. And in my SQL Server Management Console, you can see that I've created a very simple database that contains a table, and that table is named T Sales, and it basically contains sales data for individual countries here. Now, that is a very simple example, of course, but it works for more complex databases as well. And I can now use that SQL Server database to do things like feed Microsoft Office charts with data without having the requirement of creating a Qlik app to do that. So for instance, I could go to Insert Chart, and I just pick a bar chart like this one here. And I can close this stuff. I will just make it wider so that it makes use of the page width. And then I can just do standard formatting of that chart. So I could, for instance, go to the let me show. I want to change the, where is that option? Category axis, no. Format legend. Oh, sorry, I misclicked. I wanted to change the format number here. So format axis. I can go to number here. So just use the default Microsoft Office functionality. Let's say we want this axis to have a currency, and yeah, basically we're fine with that. Now what we can do is we can create a new table element, and I'm just going to call this chart data. And in that table element, I can specify that the source for this table should be an SQL query. It should query the MAD database that I've created. And I can specify an SQL query. For instance, select country and sales from T sales. And then I have to set this table element to fill MSO chart. And that means I can now go into the MSO chart, into the alt text, and simply link this table to this MSO chart by providing percentage, then the code of the report element. And that makes mail and deploy, or that gives mail and deploy the instruction, hey, use that table to fill or to provide the data for this chart element. And then we have many additional properties. So I can, for instance, set the chart title, my new chart. And these are all dynamic values. You can calculate them from Qlik variables, from SQL queries, whatever. So you could make them dynamic as well. And I can now save this and create a preview. And as you can see, we have now filled this my new chart with the data from our SQL Server database. Okay, that was it from my live demo. Emma, I'm gonna give you I'm gonna make you the host now, so you can start your presentation.
Yes. Hi. Yes, thank you very much. Super cool features about the pivot tables and yeah, the SQL database as well. So now we are gonna go and check out the Qlik Sense SaaS. Good, so I have to share my screen. Perfect. Wait a second. No, wait. Share. Good. So I hope you can see. You can also see the chat now.
Yep.
Good. So this is our Qlik Cloud. So it's like the Qlik Sense SaaS. And I have here a app. And from this app, I want to design a report. Good. So we'll go step by step what to do on the cloud part, and then we go to the mail and deploy part. So this is our app. Good. It's a normal app. So the first thing to do is, maybe you know it already, maybe not, but this is a good tip, because when you do, you need an API key to access the SaaS. Qlik will say, okay, you can give it for 3 months or 6 months, but no, that's annoying. So the first thing to do is to increase the time of this, when valid, how long can it be valid, this API key. And this is a cool tip, because if you don't know it, you will have to go and renew it every 6 months, I think. So in the settings, so you are in the management console, in the settings, and here is where you can change maximum number, change maximum token expiration. So 10,000 days, it would give 27 years. So you have a piece for 27 years. So that being said, the next step is we are going to do I have to go back to the hub. Wait a second. No, I can do it from here. The next thing to do is we're going to generate a API key, and you do it in the profile settings. Okay. And you do it in the API keys. Okay. And this key will be done for this account. So what I can see is what mail and deploy will be able to see if I provide this API key. So remember the 27 years. So here is the 27 years. So I will call it mail and deploy LevelUp and generate. So attention, when you close this one, you will never be able to retrieve this key. So you have to copy paste it, and preferably copy it in a notepad or something to have it handy. But that's it from the cloud part. Now we can go to the management console of mail and deploy. You saw this already, and I do have it here, but I want you to see it live. So create data source. We will connect to the SaaS app, right? I do have my key in the clipboard, and I need the URL, which is the syntax to use. The syntax to use is this. Okay, copy and paste. Now, when I press sync or refresh, we will get all the apps that this account is entitled to see. And I want this one, Executive Dashboard LevelUp. Okay, LevelUp version 2. Good. The next step to do is to reveal the cache. We call it reveal the cache, and that means that we're going to build a dictionary from all the components. The name of the variables, the name of the fields, of the tables, of the graphs, everything. That is the feed for our data source browser. We saw it in the Bernd's designer as well. Good. So we wait a bit. we are connecting to the SaaS. Okay, we are not doing it premise, so that's why it can take a bit longer. Well, it's taking a bit longer as expected. Perfect. Here we go. And we are going to do a new report. Create report. Report. This time we'll do an Excel. And do that. Word. Version 2. And we'll design it using the third icon. And we start from scratch. Good. We are not going to do a pivot table because we have seen the pivot tables. Let's do a dashboard. Why? Why a dashboard? Because the dashboards, normally you put so much time and effort to producing a very complete and beautiful dashboard that we should be able to recycle it. And we add it to our Excel template. And Mail and Deploy has the possibility to choose a higher resolution. Okay, let's try it. And scaling, I'm going to put it around, I don't know, 75. And that will mean that we are going to be able to see more content. So our legends and so will not get truncated. Okay. Remember, Qlik is responsive. So if it doesn't have space, then it will start truncating all the legends. Let's put it like this. Looks nice. And we can run the preview. Perfect. So in Mail and Deploy, we have the motto, more information is better than less information. So step by step, we know what Mail and Deploy is doing. And if there's an error, you know exactly where it is. You don't have to guess, oh, let me try this, let me try that. You see it right away if there's an error, where to start debugging. Good. And voila, we have our Excel. Oh, it jumped to the other monitor. I have to drag it here. So here we have our dashboard. Remember that we used a higher resolution. If we zoom, our graphs are sharp. Other tools don't offer this possibility. Good. I think I showed you enough. We don't have to see the table and we don't have to see the charts because it's all drag and drop. I rather save the time for questions and answers, if you all agree. So I will make you again host. Wait a second. Oh my. Wait. Make host. Yes. Now you're host again, Pam.
Yes. Thanks a lot. Okay, Angelica, you want to take over or do you want me to do that?
Yeah, just you see it. Do you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
You see the questions coming, so just take it, please.
Yeah, okay, I hear you're busy. Okay, so one question that we got was whether all extensions are supported for both client, so on-premise or SaaS versions of Qlik Sense. So this native table support that we showed you, where let's say the finance report template or the pivot table are added to the report with all the specialities of that particular extension, that it has to be explicitly supported by us. So we do have a list of extensions that where we already have support. We're always happy to add new extensions and support a more a native export of those extensions. I mean, this mainly affects, of course, table extensions, because as long as it's a graphical extension, as long as you just want to have an image of that visualization in your report, that's virtually possible for every extension out there. But for this special table extensions, we do have to explicitly support them. And there is a list, I think. So if you go to help.mail-and-deploy.com and you go into the version 3 help and you navigate to the Qlik. I mean, actually, I can show you while I'm sharing the screen here. Let me just open my browser. So I can go to help.mail-and-deploy.com, access online documentation, version 3, and under administration, data sources, Qlik Sense, introduction, I do get a list of all supported, of all objects that we have supported so far, whether a graphic export is supported and or a table export is supported. And as I said, we are happy to add more extension to that list. So if you find yourself in a situation where you have an extension that is not yet supported, we're definitely happy to include that one as well.
And I am reading a question about how to upload to SharePoint. I prepared already I have a task already, so I can share my screen.
Okay. Oh, I'm gonna have to make you the host again, right?
Yes.
Let me see, participants. More make host. Yep, you should be fine.
Perfect, because this is very fast and I can show you right away how to upload to a SharePoint. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah,
Almost.
now it's here.
So you can see you create these are the tasks. You create a report and then you use the action upload content to SharePoint. The funny thing or funky thing is to get to this link. This is the link that you have to try yourself. What's the link of your SharePoint, to which folder and which subfolder? So in my case, I'm using this one with my Office account and password. And
it's basically, if you allow me to interrupt, this URL is basically the root URL of your SharePoint root folder, more or less. That's
yeah. Good. Stop sharing.
Okay, let me.
You are host again.
Very good. So one of the questions that I saw was whether we support Oracle as well. So I did not cover that in the live demo, but I will go back to the management console. And under data sources, when creating a new data source, I also have the Oracle database option here. So I can specify host port, the service name of the Oracle database, and work with that just like I did with the SQL Server database that I just showed. Another question is, in the beginning, you mentioned API support. It would be interesting to integrate Mail and Deploy with Qlik application automations. Have you done any testing with that? So we have not done any specific testing with Qlik application automations. We certainly will try to support that. And since Mail and Deploy uses a pretty standard REST API to trigger task executions, and we also provide a command line tool that you can simply start with command line arguments to trigger a task and or to trigger the distribution of reports. I'm very confident that it will be integratable into Qlik application automations very easily. I hope that answered the question. So one question that I see here is what is required to configure the SQL connection? So basically, all that is required is if I edit the SQL Server data source that I have added to Mail and Deploy, you can see all that it is needed is a connection. So of course you need to have a SQL Server or Oracle instance running. The server that runs Mail and Deploy needs to have access to that server, so the port must be open and all that kind of stuff. You have to have a user account that you can then specify in Mail and Deploy to connect to Oracle or a SQL Server. And then, of course, you have to add the name of the database, and the user has to have access to that database. And the user only has to have read access, of course, because Mail and Deploy never writes into the SQL Server data source. So I hope that answered the question. If not, please feel free to post a follow-up. And another question was, can you please also show how to upload to MS SharePoint? Okay, I think we already had that. So any other questions? Okay, so currently no other questions coming in. Emma, our presentation. Oh, okay. So another question that just came in, are the subscription possibilities also available in high resolution? Well, by that you mean when when somebody or when someone subscribes to a sheet or a chart or whatever from within the QlikSense app, that particular sheet will also be exported in high quality, in high resolution. Is that the question? Maybe you can type a quick yes or no. Yes, so absolutely. So we when someone subscribes to a visualization, then it will always be in high resolution, so the highest resolution available, and that is 4 times the DPI of standard, or in other words, the image will be sharp up to a zoom factor of 400%.
I read another question. Do you Do we support extensions like TrueChart or Qlik maps?
Yeah, as I said before, yeah, so TrueChart support for version 3 is currently in development, because that also requires a bit of work to be done by the developer of TrueChart, and you can get a list of all supported extensions in the documentation. I will open it again so you can see that. So these are all the extensions that we currently support. Actually, I think in the newest version which has not yet been released but is close to release, there are additional objects in there. Yeah, but you can find that information here. And as I said, if you have an extension that you like to be supported and it isn't yet, then we're always happy to consider to include it as well.
Another question. How do you manage different languages in the same report, but for different people?
Yeah, there is an option. Oh, I have my designer still open. So there is an option here that the report has a culture name option. And by default, it simply uses the culture of the system that Mail and Deploy is installed on. So basically the regional settings of the service account of Mail and Deploy. But you can specify dynamically a culture here. So if you had a dynamic recipient list, let's say you had a Qlik app, or in your Qlik app, you have an association between a report recipient, email address, and culture name. And by culture name, I basically mean these typical culture codes like EN, US, oh no, that's EU, US, EN, US, DE, AT for Austria, and that kind of stuff. Then you can actually create the same report without having to actually change anything in your template, using number and date formats of that particular culture that you have selected or that is associated with that user. For multi-language, so if you want to have also certain text portions of your report to be translated, you could either do that by creating 2 templates or more templates, so 1 template per language, or you can have some kind of localization logic in your Qlik app where we just filter to a language field and filter it to EN for English, and then you have variables that return, so standard Qlik variables that return certain text portions in the language that we have selected, and we can use those variables in the report to actually make the report multi-language, or support multi-languages. And together with the culture name, we can actually provide a fully localized report automatically, dynamically, based on data within your QlikSense app that you have associated with individual report recipients. Okay.
More questions. The last minute. Like the last minute question.
I mean, if there are no other questions coming in, I will post, or I will show the last slide that I have. If you have any questions after this level up, get in touch with us. info@mailanddeploy.com or www.mailanddeploy.com for our website. Get a demo, get a presentation, ask questions so we can get into more details about your particular use case there. And yeah, I think
Nothing more to say.
Nothing more to say. All
Yeah.
questions answered.
We will send you the recording.
And hopefully get in touch with us to also benefit from the rich feature set that Mail and Deploy offers. From my side, I wish everyone a great day, a great evening, wherever you are in the world, and hope you enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you and bye.
I also say bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.